सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। दयाकरं दयाकारं दान्तं धर्मप्रवर्तकं प्रणमामि दयानन्दं मदाचार्यवरं परम्। ॐ गं गणपतये नमः। ॐ गं गणपतये नमः। ॐ गं गणपतये नमः। अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। जय दुर्गा लक्ष्मी सरस्वती पाहि जगन्माता। 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 पाहि जगन्माता मां पाहि जगन्माता। पाहि जगन्माता पाहि जगन्माता। पाहि जगन्माता मां पाहि जगन्माता। सरस्वती पाहि जगन्माता। भज गोविन्दं भज गोविन्दं गोविन्दं भज मूढमते। सम्प्राप्ते सन्निहिते काले नहि नहि रक्षति दुःकृन्करणे। भज भज गोविन्दं भज गोविन्दं गोविन्दं भज मूढमते। मूढजहीहि धनागमतृष्णां कुरु सद्बुद्धिं मनसि वितृष्णां। यल्लभसे निजकर्मोपातं वित्तं तेन विनोदय चित्तं। भज गोविन्दं गोविन्दं भज गोविन्दं गोविन्दं भज मूढमते नारीस्तनभरनाभिदेशं दृष्ट्वा मागामोहावेशम् एतन्मांसवसादिविकारं मनसि विचिन्तय वारं वारं भज गोविन्दं भज गोविन्दं गोविन्दं भज मूढमते नलिनीदलगत जलमतितरलं तद्वज्जीवितमतिशय चपलं विद्धि व्याधिमानग्रस्तं लोकं शोकहतं च समस्तं भज गोविन्दं भज गोविन्दं गोविन्दं भज मूढमते यावद्वित्तोपार्जनसक्तः तावन्निज परिवारो रक्तः पश्चाज्जीवति जर्जरदेहे वार्तां कोऽपि न पृच्छति गेहे भज गोविन्दं भज गोविन्दं गोविन्दं भज मूढमते यावत् पवनो निवसति देहे तावत् पृच्छति कुशलं येहे गतवति वायो देहापाये भार्या बिभ्यति तस्मिन् काये भज गोविन्दं भज गोविन्दं गोविन्दं भज मूढमते बालस्तावत् क्रीडासक्तः तरुणस्तावत् तरुणीसक्तः वृद्धस्तावत् चिन्तासक्तः परमे ब्रह्मणि कोऽपि न सक्तः भज गोविन्दं भज गोविन्दं गोविन्दं भज मूढमते काते कान्ता कस्ते पुत्रः संसारोऽयमतीव विचित्रः कस्य त्वं कः कुतः आयातः तत्त्वं चिन्तय तदिह भ्रातः भज गोविन्दं भज गोविन्दं गोविन्दं भज मूढमते सत्सङ्गत्वे निस्सङ्गत्वं निस्सङ्गत्वे निर्मोहत्वं निर्मोहत्वे निश्चलतत्वं निश्चलतत्वे जीवन्मुक्तिः भज गोविन्दं भज गोविन्दं गोविन्दं भज मूढमते मा कुरु धन जन यौवन गर्वं हरति निमेषात् कालः सर्वं मायामयमिदमखिलं हित्वा ब्रह्मपदं त्वं प्रविश विदित्वा भज गोविन्दं भज गोविन्दं गोविन्दं भज मूढमते काते कान्ता धनगत चिन्ता वातुल किं तव नास्ति नियन्ता त्रिजगति सज्जन सङ्गतिरेका भवति भवानवतरणे नौका भज गोविन्दं भज गोविन्दं गोविन्दं भज मूढमते सुरमन्दिरकरुमूलनिवासः शय्याभूतलमजिनं वासः सर्वपरिग्रहभोगत्यागः कस्य सुखं न करोति विरागः भज गोविन्दं भज गोविन्दं Govindam Bhaja Mudamate. Yoga Ratoba Bhoga Ratoba Sangha Ratoba Sangha Vihinaha Yasya Brahmani Ramate Chittam Nandati Nandati Nandatyeva. Bhaja Govindam Bhaja Govindam Govindam Bhaja Mudamate. Bhagavad Gita Kinchidadhita Ganga Jalalava Kanika Pita Sakrida Piyena Murari Samarcha Kriyate Tasya Yamena Nacharcha. Bhaja Govindam Bhaja Govindam Govindam Bhaja Mudamate. Punarapi Jananam Punarapi Maranam Punarapi Janani Jathare Shayanam Iha Samsare Bahudostare Kripaya Pare Pahi Murare. Bhaja Govindam Bhaja Govindam Govindam Bhaja Mudamate. Tvaimai Chanyatreiko Vishnu Vyartam Kupyasi Maya Sahisnu Bhava Samachitta Sarvatra Tvam Panchasya Chiradyani Vishnu Tvam. Bhaja Govindam Bhaja Govindam Govindam Bhaja Mudamate. Bhaja Govindam Bhaja Govindam Govindam Bhaja Mudamate. Geyam Gita Nama Sahasram. Verse 27. 16 page. Geyam Gita Nama Sahasram.
Geyam Gita Nama Sahasram.
Geyam
Gita Nama Sahasram.
Dhyeyam Shripati Rupamajastram.
Dhyeyam Shripati Rupamajastram. Dhyeyam Shripati Rupamajastram.
Neyam Sajjana Sange Chittam.
Neyam Sajjana Sange Chittam. Neyam Sajjana Sange Chittam.
Deyam Dina Janaya Chavittam.
Deyam Dina Janaya Chavittam. Deyam Dina Janaya Chavittam.
Geyam Gita Nama Sahasram. Deyam Shripati Rupamajastram. Neyam Sajjana Sange Chittam. Deyam Dina Janaya Chavittam. Bhaja Govindam Bhaja Govindam Govindam Bhaja Mudamate. So the final verses I have chosen are certain sadhanas that Acharya ji highlights for your spiritual path. So the knowledge is there, but we need mental purification for the knowledge to become assimilated. So Chitta Shuddhi is very important in the whole process of the spiritual path, spiritual journey. So he recommends certain practices to take up. Here he is talking about Vachikam Karma. So there are 3 ways in which we can earn Bhagavan's grace. And Bhagavan's grace is much needed for our spiritual lives. Manasikam Karma, which is mental karma, which is also action. Vachikam, which is verbal. And Kayikam, which is with your body. You can do pujas physically. But here he is specifically talking about Vachikam Karma to invoke grace. What way is he recommending? He's saying, chant, recite the Bhagavad Gita. Geyam Gita. This is also a sadhana. It will bless you with the knowledge of Gita. The mere recitation even if you don't know the meaning, that mere recitation blesses you. Geyam Gita, because as you study the Gita and you learn the chanting, you contemplate the meaning more. So Geyam here means do the Parayanam of Gita, chant at least. As we have, chanting regularly, daily there, online. And, I've called it a chapter a day to keep samsara away. So, people join and just mere chanting, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and that helps. So, this is what he is recommending here. And through this chanting also, you connect with Bhagavan. There is some energy to Gita chanting. You can hear, you can feel it. Then Ajasram, how should this be done? Only on Gita Jayanti? No, Ajasram means continuously without break. All of these practices, spiritual practices, are always continuously without break. That Ajasram goes with every practice you do. Sometimes we lose interest because we say nothing is happening. Now, I've been chanting for 10, 20 years, nothing is happening. Something is happening, you don't know it. That is all getting built up, and Bhagavan will manifest when the time is right, the product of all of that. But don't give it up. So even if it takes a lifetime and you still feel nothing is happening, it will all accumulate, and something sometime will happen. But one has to have that shraddha, it does bless. So Ajasra means that one continuously without break keeps up the practices and surrendering to Bhagavan, surrendering to the Ishvara, the order, non-resistance. We have seen that. Then Manasikam karma he mentions. Manasikam is Deyam Shripati Rupam Ajasram. Continuously dwell on the Swarupa. Rupa here doesn't mean only physical form. We always begin, Deyam means meditate, focus on. So when meditation, we start meditating without guidance, on our own as well. Saguna Brahma Manasa Vyaparaha, that is the description of meditation in the shastra, which means I relate to a form. It's very difficult to sit and relate to nothing. So we always bring a form of Ishvara. Here, Adi Shankaracharya's Sri Pati, who is he says, meditate on the Lord of Lakshmi. Meditate on Vishnu. So he's saying that bring that form in when you do this dhyanam, bring the form into your vision, visualize the form. We have the dhyana shlokas of Vishnu Sahasranama actually describing Vishnu in his form. If you don't relate to a form of Ishvara, you can also take a light, but you need some object. So some people cannot relate to forms. It's not forced, but Saguna Brahma, something with the form, you can invoke Ishvara in any form. But when you keep bringing the mind back to that form, that is called meditation. So it is very natural for the mind to wander out. The mind will not just sit still. As soon as you sit, does the mind sit still? We all know. But people wrongly say, oh, I cannot meditate. I don't know how to meditate. I'm not able to sit still. If you understand meditation, everybody can do it, even a few minutes a day. It doesn't mean you sit and you're quiet. It means every time the mind wanders out, you bring it back to the focus. So whatever you focus on. So here he's saying, whether you take Shiva, you take Vishnu, you take Krishna, whichever Ishta Devata you have, Hanuman, anyone, you meditate on them at least for a few moments in the day. We cannot keep that form all the time in our minds, right? Ultimately, that form, the Swarupa of the form, should be contemplated on. That is where Vedanta comes into the picture, to understand the formless. The formless behind the form, Vedanta helps unfold. So, Gita, all of this is good to understand Bhagavan with form, because from chapter 7 to 12, Krishna talks about Ishvara as the all-pervasive one, and also everything in creation. You can even meditate. Looking at Ganga is also meditation. Meditating on Goddess there. So it is all here. And Neyam Sajjana here it is, where is it? Yeah. So, Neyam Sajjana Sange Chittam. So, again, this idea is brought. We have seen it quite a few times. As I said, when it is reiterated, it is said again and again, it is for reinforcement. Take your mind to Sajjana. Take it to people given to this pursuit. Keep with Satsanga. You have to make the effort. Neyam is actually, a command. Take it. Which means what? You have to make the effort. People are not going to fall into your lap. In fact, nothing in the life falls into our lap. You make the effort. Make the time to find people. As I said, make your own group. But again, because it's emphasized, it means it is a very important aspect to the spiritual life. Take your body and mind to places where you hear glories of the Lord. And if you don't have the opportunity, take your mind to literature that talks about Lord. Take your mind to doing Shravanam. We have an app, teachings of Swami Dayananda. We can listen to Swamiji's lectures. Take the mind to the Shravanam. So this is what is meant by Sajjana Chittam. You have to nayam. You have to lead the mind. And Deyam Dina Janaya Cha Vittam. Deyam Dina Janaya Cha Vittam. So another sadhana which is very important, very beautiful. In one verse he has brought in all the sadhanas. The chanting, parayanam, the meditation, the contemplation on Ishvara, the being in the good company, and finally service to mankind. Give whatever wealth you have been blessed with, share it. Wealth is not to store in your bank accounts. It is to make others' lives better. Share the wealth. He's saying Dina Janaya. And who should you share the wealth with? There, Bhagavan in the, 17th chapter, he talks about, Sattvika Dhanam, different types of giving, different types of charity. A Tamasika, Dhanam is giving to people who don't deserve, who don't need. Like giving blankets in sub-Saharan Africa. Will they need it? So this type of unthinking giving is also not giving. He says very clearly, Datavyam iti yat dhanam diyate anupakarine. You have to see the patra. Dina jana means people who are not able to give back anything. You give to people who are helpless. Dina janas, who cannot do anything for themselves. So this dhanam becomes a very important also sadhana in our spiritual life. That giving, not, with any force, not also with making yourself and your family suffer, because that is charity begins at home. There's a saying in English, we have to take care of our loved ones. There are people who don't take care of their home and they do seva all over the place. That is also not really being charitable. You do your duties first. Don't neglect your duties to go and do service elsewhere, because they also suffer. So do first begins with those people who Ishvara has brought into your life, because you have karmic debts with these people, right? They have karmic debts with you, you have karmic debts with them. So I can't escape that, and I want to go off. Again, you're neglecting your duty. So duty to home and the people there first, then whatever spare time you have, you spend in the other pursuits. That is, all of this. So money, all this, money is meant for sharing. Money is meant for giving. And all of these practices lead to Chitta Shuddhi, Sattva Shuddhi. So he's given this. The next verse I'm taking is 30. Verse 30. Again he talks about some sadhanas to help. He says, Pranayamam Pratyaharam.
Pranayamam Pratyaharam. Pranayamam Pratyaharam.
Nitya Viveka Vicharam.
Nitya Viveka Vicharam. Nitya Viveka Vicharam.
Japya Sameta Samadhi Vidhanam.
Japya Sameta Samadhi Vidhanam. Japya Sameta Samadhi Vidhanam.
Kurva Kurvavadhanam Mahadavadhanam
Kurvavadhanam Mahadavadhanam Kurvavadhanam Mahadavadhanam
Pranayamam Pratyaharam Nitya Nitya Viveka Vicharam Japya Sameta Samadhi Vidhanam Kurvavadhanam Bhagavadhanam Bhaja Govindam Bhaja Govindam Govindam Bhaja Mudamate. So now he brings in Patanjali Ashtanga Yoga. So these are steps there: pranayama, pratyahara. Pranayama, we know there are many techniques for pranayama, but we have to be careful. Pranayama unsupervised can be very dangerous. It can actually lead to mental illnesses. So that is something he also recommends here. Be careful when you do these practices. So pranayama we take to is what we did in meditation, which is prana vikshana. That is also a form of pranayama. And it is a very effective technique which is handed over in our tradition to focus the mind. Very simple technique, because you don't have to force the breath, you don't have to do vigorous, breathing, all of this, which can lead to other things not supervised. This is something you can do by yourself anywhere. Simply bring your mind to the sense of touch, focusing on the air entering in and out. So this is called prana vikshanam, observance of the breath. And as Ramana Maharishi in Upadesha Saram, he says that prana and mind are linked. If you pull one branch, the other one comes down. So your breath is very much linked to your thoughts. That's why when you manage your breath, you're able to control your breathing, then your mind also comes under your management. So this is a very important practice in, again, spiritual pursuit, to calm the mind. Because all these practices, again, we have to see what is the result. It is not to give knowledge. Knowledge only can be got by studying. So this studying of the text. So all of this is not a compensation for knowledge. It is a means for the knowledge to stay with you. So all of these practices become upayas, they help in our spiritual journey. So pranayama, pratyahara. Pratyahara is given in Yoga Sutras, but in our Vedanta, we call it is equivalent to Dhamma. We've seen this as a qualification for a spiritual aspirant. Pratyahara means not holding on to, not grabbing onto sense objects. It's the ability to live a disciplined life. So it is not that you totally absent yourself from sense objects. We have seen any extreme is also not good. I don't have to run away from sense objects. When I go to the dining hall and I say gulab jamun, no, I can't. I'll go and sit somewhere else. I can't have the... No, it is not running away, but it is the ability to say no. See, the senses are data input. We can't blame our senses. They're built that way that they bring in data from external world, objects of external world. So when the senses, I always look at it like senses come and they offer to the mind, and the mind is what decides to go after it or not. I don't know, this morning I was thinking about this, and I remember when I was very young, we used to have one cat, and it used to, the animals do this. But every day, in UK you have these cat flaps, so they can come and go. They're very free, they wander around, they come back in, they have their freedom. In this country it's difficult, if you have a domestic pet. But every morning it used to bring back some dead bird, some dead mouse, something like that. Because for it, that's the way it shows love, right? Oh, we are offering what we want to offer to our owners as well. So it is an offering. Same way, I was thinking the senses also do the same thing. Senses go out, they get all objects, bring back to the mind, which is the master, and they offer to the mind. But does the mind eat that? Does the mind need to go after that? It is the mind that decides whether to accept the offering or not, right? So the mind has to learn to say no to the ears, mind has to no to the mouth, no, especially to the mouth. No to the mouth, no to the eyes. This is where the mind has to become master of the senses. I don't know, I was thinking of this example. I said, my God, this is exactly what senses do. So all sorts of junk we don't need to accept. Mind has to learn to say no. That's what disciplined life is. And if I keep taking, then the mind gets weakened. My willpower gets weakened. And again, it is not a very healthy mind to have for spiritual life. So a strong, focused mind. Then he says, Nitya Viveka Vicharam, Pranayama, Pratyahara, all of these to be practiced along with what? Viveka. I have to see what is Nitya, what is permanent, and what is Anitya, what is temporary in life. And how do I see that? Look at your life. Look at your experiences. You yourself are the best teacher for this. What is permanent what has been permanent in your life? Nothing. Everything is gone. One thing is permanent. I still am here, right? I am that permanent here. Who is that I? That I has to be inquired into. So I have to see what is temporary. When it's temporary, I have to understand the limitations. Doesn't mean, again, I have to avoid anything, but it's a healthy attitude to life, understanding things cannot give me what I really want. That is what Nitya Vastu Viveka does. And we need the help of Shastra and Guru to examine these things. So that is also there. Then Japya Sameta Samadhi Vidhanam. Japya means don't give up any japa. Japa is also another excellent technique to absorb the mind, to manage the mind, to manage other things. So japa should be done regularly. I can't just say, I'll do japa on Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays. No. Japa means the recitation of a mantra, the regular and sustained recitation of a mantra. Usually for japa, we don't do long stotras. You can't do japa of Vishnu Sahasranama. That becomes a huge sadhana. I mean, if you do japa, you need hours in the day to do that japa. So, I think Swamiji was just here. Can you just tell Swamiji? We will call him when we are finished. Was it?
Yeah.
Was it? Okay. Some orange. Someone orange. Okay. So this japa keeps your mind focused. Japa is also a great tool for concentration. And with japa you also invoke Ishvara's grace. So japa invokes Bhagwan's grace in one's life. So japa becomes an important tool. This has to be kept up. Mahat avadhanam. How is it to be kept up? With great attention, with great steadiness. So again, as I said, not breaking in between, not leaving it, not doing japa for even a few months and then letting the mantra go. No, japa, when the mantra is given, it should be a regular. So don't neglect the japa, because when you find, you're trying to convert the prakriti that you're born with. The mind, today in meditation we saw, we're born with a certain nature. We cannot control that nature. Even Krishna says in the 3rd chapter, you are not in control of the nature that you are given. Your mind is driven in a certain way because of your past life karma. You're born with that. And also because of nature and nurture come together. The environment that the mind has been brought up in also affects the mind. So how do I transform the mind? If I want to make a change and I see certain thinking patterns are not helpful for me in my life, I'm constantly getting into conflict situations because of certain reactions that are happening. As I said, objectively, without self-condemnation, without self-loathe, without self-hatred, I can make changes to my thinking. And japa becomes a very important tool, an instrument to be able to make changes to my thinking. So if I do this japa regularly, constantly, consistently, the mind, the matter which is mind starts transforming. You will find your thoughts also, they will become more sattvic, you become more focused, you become more calm. So japa is very important. And he says mahat avadhanam, which means with great attention. Great attention means don't neglect the practices. Because if you neglect the practices, mind reverts to original nature. See, this is something very important to understand, and you can try it for yourselves. If you neglect the practices, mind goes back. That's why we say practices cannot give you permanent freedom. Why can't practices give you permanent freedom? Because you have to keep them up. You have to keep them up until you leave the body to give you that peace. Here in Jnanam, you don't have to keep up anything. When you have the knowledge, you have the knowledge. You don't need to keep up. In fact, shastra also, shastra eventually gets dropped. It's like a pole vaulter. When you go over the bar, do you keep the pole with you? No, the pole has helped you get over the bar, but you drop the pole. So, shastra, all of this is also, after you go over the bar, then you don't need. So with the practices also, there has to come a time where you don't need any more practice, right? When the vision is there, why do you need to practice? You could still practice just because of joy, or if you're teaching, you have to show your students, or you have to be an example. Yet acharati shreshtaha tatta deve taro tayo janaha. So you have to be a example to the others. So this is important to understand. Mahat avadana means don't break it. Keep it up until the mind is ready for the Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasnam. You're able to absorb the mind in the main sadhana for self-knowledge, and don't neglect your sadhanas. So the last verse we will do, and that is the verse 31. Guru charanam bhuja nirbhara bhaktaha.
Guru charanam bhuja nirbhara bhaktaha. Guru charanam bhuja nirbhara bhaktaha.
Samsārāda chirāt bhava muktaha.
Samsārāda chirāt bhava muktaha. Samsārāda chirāt bhava muktaha.
Sendriya manasa niyamadevam.
Sendriya manasa niyamadevam. Sendriya manasa niyamadevam.
Drakshyasi nija hridayastam devam.
Drakshyasi nija hridayastam devam. Drakshyasi nija hridayastam devam.
Guru charanam bhuja nirbhara bhaktaha. Samsāra achirat bhava muktaha. Sendriya manasa niyamadevam. Drakshyasi nija hridayastam devam. Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja Mudamate. Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja Mudamate. So the final thing he recommends is Guru Charanam Bhuja Nirbhara Bhaktaha. So a bhakta we know is a devotee. Be devoted to the lotus feet of one's guru. So we have to understand why is lotus used? Because lotus is a very beautiful flower. I did some research on lotus. The seed of a lotus can survive for 200 years, without actually fructifying. So the lotus also, it usually lives in very muddy waters. So it is often used in the spiritual, the flower in the spiritual sense. Because in the samsaric, muddy waters of samsara, it is untainted, untouched. It comes up in the morning beautifully, and it doesn't carry that mud with it. So it's untouched. So here in the same way, lotus eyes, lotus feet, when you see that, it talks about the purity of the teacher, purity of the guru. And this unflinching nirbhara means unflinching devotion. Unflinching means there is no doubt. When you take the guru, and it takes years, by the way, it is not overnight that one understands the teacher. You have to understand the teacher through the teaching. So there, in those days, you also have to live with the teacher. You see how the teacher is. You see how the teacher behaves in certain situations. You see how they are. And when you see that how they are, how they live, how they take decisions, all of this, plus the teaching, then you have Shraddha. You start developing Shraddha. What does the teacher want for me? The teacher wants you to have the vision he or she has. So this is what encourages or engenders this unflinching, unwavering devotion. Bowing, and feet are always the lowest part of a human body. So when you bow down, we are bowing our ego down to that. Because ego always wants to be on top. In the story, Krishna with Duryodhana and Arjuna, when they wanted to take Krishna's advice before beginning the Mahabharata war, Arjuna walked in, he immediately sat at Krishna's feet. Where did Duryodhana go? He went straight to his head. This is the feeling, But when Krishna opened his eyes, who did he see first? It was Arjuna. And we know that Arjuna picked Krishna over all the armies. Because he saw Arjuna first, he gave Arjuna the choice. Would you like me? Would you like non-fighting Krishna? Or do you want all my armies? What did Arjuna say? I want non-fighting Krishna. Because non-fighting Krishna means Devam, grace. He knows when he picked Krishna, grace is on his side. And grace is ultimately that which wins everything. So here he's saying, this Guru, Samsārat achirat bhava muktaha. With the Guru, with the teaching, with the shastra, you are, that love is developed for these things. And with that, you will be freed from this samsara. How quickly? 1 year, 2 years? Achirat. There's no time frame mentioned. Achirat means very quickly. But for that very quickly, one needs the attitude. Correct attitude is necessary for the very quickly. So there is a saying in our shastra, Acharyavan Purusho Veda, which is a very brave statement actually. The one with an Acharya will definitely know the Purusha, will definitely know Ishvara, understand Ishvara. It is a promise in the shastra. So this bhakti is encouraged in our shastra. It is not to the person. The person is just a medium of communication. In fact, it is to the teaching. The person also comes into the picture, but that bhakti in the person is for you to listen to what the person is saying. If you have love for your teacher, many of your teachers here, the students who have love for you do the best in the class. Because they love the teacher, they will put the effort. So in the same way, in self-knowledge field, when the love and the devotion is encouraged, because when you have love and devotion, then the teaching blesses you. It is for your own sake you develop these attitudes actually. That is why we chant, when we chant Sahana Bhavatu, the last line, Ma Vidvishavahe. Ma Vidvishavahe means let there not be any disagreement between us. So teacher and student are saying the prayer. Because as soon as any disagreement or any kind of misunderstanding happens, then the teaching also drops off. You cannot focus. So we focus on the teaching, understand that the teacher, when you know the teacher, what agenda the teacher has, then you know the teacher wants to only give knowledge. That is a real teacher. Teacher does not want anything else. So we don't question teacher's decisions. Surrender means surrender in all levels. We know Shraddha, 100% teacher is doing for the best. Guru. So here he says, Sendriya Manasa Niyamat Evam. Again, the same idea. You should be qualified for this knowledge. So keep your indriyas with you. Don't let those senses go out all the time. You are the one who managed the senses, and bring your mind along back with you as well. Because when your mind and your senses are under your management, when you have mental mastery, sensory mastery, then this knowledge is not far away. How many times we have seen this also being said, you should note the points, the verses where these things are repeated. So we see, sense reigning in the senses has come up a lot. In Bhagavad Gita also, Krishna talks about it. We cannot, have all the objects of the world, enjoying everything all the time and still have a mind that meditates and is quiet and contemplative. It doesn't work. because you're doing two opposite things. So that is why when I reduce my interest in all of these outside, mind becomes available for me for this pursuit. So slowly happens, it is not overnight. Indriya, saha, manasa, evam, and when you niyamya, when you do that, when you control it, when you manage it, niyamya literally means control. But Swamiji never used to like that word. Manage, okay, manage it. And then what happens? Drakshasi nija hridayastam devam. Drakshasi means you will see, it is future tense. You will see. What will you see? Devam. Devam is the effulgent Atma. Is the self-revealing, self-shining Atma, which is here he calls the God. God in your heart. You will see the Lord who is already in your heart, but you will see Him. How will you see Him? Cognitively. Cognitively you will understand who you truly are. Seeing, and where will you see? Nija hridayastam. Heart means upalabdhi sthanam in your intellect. Where does knowledge take place? So you have to be very careful. Heart, mind, all of these things. In English we call it heart, but it is actually cognitively you recognize. And that word is given, upalabdhi sthanam, where the recognition happens. The vritti arises after having done all these practices, doing regular shravanam, listening to the words of Vedanta. You create that vritti. That vritti arises, removing the last vestige of ignorance, avidya, and what do you see? The self. Self-shining, self-effulgent devam in your heart. That is called self-discovery, self-recognition, self-realization. And it is made by Guru Upadesha and your own efforts with the qualifications we have seen. So with this, we have finished the verses of Bhaja Govindam, at least selected verses, and we managed to finish the final verses. And I hope all have some takeaways from this retreat. And these are things, you can use at home for your practice. So as I said yesterday, the wake-up call, the warning alarm, siren alarm of Adi Shankara, which has woken everybody up in a few days, should not actually leave you. Should not go back to sleep, when you go back. So keep it up. Keep the sajjana, satsanga, all of this recommendation, and keep it up with you. Okay? So we'll finish, and can we call Swamiji? We'll finish with the closing prayers. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah, Sarve Santu Niramayah, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet, Asato Ma Sadgamaya, Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya, Mrityor Ma Amritam Gamaya. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Guru